Hello everybody and welcome to yet another A+1101 exam objective breakdown. Today we're going to be breaking down the A+ exam objective 1101 3.3. Okay, so we are going to be looking at this exam objective right here: hard drives, SSDs, drive configurations for RAIDs. That's a big topic. A lot of people get confused on that quite a bit from my experience, so we'll focus in on that one, and removable storage, which is pretty easy. Now, I'm going to give you the information that I think you need to know that is crucial for the exam. I am not going to go beyond these exam objectives, and then I will give you some practice exam questions at the end so that you can get an idea of where you stand for this particular exam objective. Okay. Let's take a look at what we have here and get started. So we're going to go ahead and start with hard drives. This one, guys, is pretty easy, right? The general idea here, okay, is that hard drives have non-volatile storage. So that just means that once you turn off the power, the data remains, okay? It doesn't disappear when power disappears. Power walks out the door, that's okay. Data is self-sufficient. It can cook for itself. It can clean for itself. It don't need no man. It is still there. It's non-volatile. It uses a lot of moving parts. This is for hard drives, specifically HDDs, which limits the speed and reliability of the drive. It limits the reliability because the more moving parts, the more that can go wrong, essentially, right? There's always going to be wear and tear there if there's moving parts, which means the more wear and tear, the more quickly it will stop working. Now, this is what you need to know for your exam as well. You need to know the common speeds and roughly what this means, okay? You need to know the four common speeds, which is 5,400 RPM, 7,200 RPM, 10,000 RPM, and 15,000 RPM. I'll be very surprised if you need to know the exact latency numbers for the milliseconds. I'd be very surprised. What you're going to need to just understand is that the higher the RPM, the less the latency is likely to be. Okay, that's pretty much all you're going to need to know, and you're going to be able to need to look at a scenario that you're given and think to yourself, okay, based on that scenario, should I recommend them a slower drive or a faster drive with less latency, considering the fact that, of course, the fast drives are going to be more expensive and the slower drives are going to be less expensive. So again, just taking into consideration their requirements and their budget when recommending a drive speed. That's pretty much what you're going to need to know for your exam on that point. Now, form factors. You've got 2.5 and 3.5 inch form factors. In laptops, you're generally going to have 2.5. So you just need to understand, right? You might be asked a question that asks you, Gerald has a 2.5 inch form factor hard drive. Will this fit in his laptop? Yes. Or does he most likely have a laptop or a desktop based on this? Okay, it's 2.5. That's a smaller form factor. Those go in laptops. Okay, so just understand that general concept for that one. So we'll go ahead and move on to SSDs now. So again, SSDs, solid state drives, are non-volatile memory, which again, we covered that last time. The memory don't need no man. It stays there even if the power goes away. Now, they are more reliable than HDDs because there's no moving parts. It's all digital. There's nothing actually happening in terms of there's no physical moving parts, which means there's less that can go wrong, which is a good thing, which means they are faster and they are quieter. They're not spinning around. There's no happening. There's annoying sounds. They're quiet. So it's like stealth mode activated, right? Now, when it comes to SSDs for your exam, you need to specifically know about the different communication interfaces, and they've listed a couple of ones you need to know about. You need to know about NVMe, okay? So this is designed to match the throughput of SSDs, resulting in less latency and higher throughput than you can find in a SATA connection. So we talked about SATA already, which is where you connect a drive to a computer, okay? Now, if you connect an SSD through a SATA connection, the SSD is really fast. SATA doesn't quite have the technology to keep up with that. and you're always going to be limited to the speed of the connection. So it's great that you have a fast SSD, but you'll still be limited to the speed of the SATA connection. Unfortunately, that's just how it works. But if you have an NVMe, it is specifically designed for SSD drives. So you're now able to actually utilize the full power of SSD, so that SSD can finally go full Hulk mode and just let all of its performance shine when you're using the NVMe interface. So we've covered NVMe, we've covered SATA. Now, PCIe or PCI Express interfaces for SSDs offer much faster data transfer speeds and lower latency compared to SATA interfaces. Now, I got really confused on this when I was studying for my exam like 2 years ago, because I had no experience with any of this, right? So the exam objectives lists NVMe and PCIe and SATA as specific interfaces for the SSDs, but I just want to kind of clarify this for you as to what this means. The actual method of connecting the SSD is going to be through SATA or PCIe. Now, once you're connected to PCIe, your SSD then uses NVMe in order to connect. So let me break it down a little bit more so it makes it a little bit more clear. So I'm just going to read from the dot point so I don't get my words mixed around. PCIe is a physical connection interface similar to SATA used for hard drives. It provides a high-speed lane for data to travel between the SSD and the motherboard. So the PCIe is providing that lane, right? It's like giving you a road. That's the way you actually connect. You're on the motorway. Once you're on the motorway, NVMe is a communication protocol specifically designed for SSDs that sits on top of the PCI interface. Okay, so you've got PCIe, and then you've got NVMe as a part of that PCIe interface. It essentially acts as a translator, optimizing the communication between the SSD and the CPU over the PCIe lane. NVMe allows the SSD to take full advantage of the PCIe's speed. So the PCIe and NVMe kind of work in harmony together, right? You've got the connection of the PCIe slot, and then you've got that NVMe, which allows that connection to utilize the SSD's full capability. So a cool little analogy here. Think of it this way. PCIe is a highway and NVMe is the optimized traffic flow system on that highway specifically designed for SSDs. While PCIe offers the high-speed lane, NVMe ensures data gets delivered efficiently through that lane. So hopefully that kind of clarified what that means for you, because when I first studied, like I said, I was super stuck on that, and that took me by surprise. Okay, now we're going to move on to some easier things. We're going to move on to form factors. So we'll go through that now. It's going to be a lot less strenuous than what we were just talking about, much more easy to understand. Now, form factors, we have two that the exam wants us to know about according to the exam objectives. We have mSATA, which was a significantly smaller form factor used in mobile devices. And we also have the M2. So the M2 replaced mSATA and is a small drive that plugs directly into the device's motherboard. Okay, so basically, I'm just going to quickly pull up a photo of it, actually. Sorry, guys, I thought I had one in there, but it turns out I didn't. So the M2 drive is... Here we go. I think this will be good enough. So if we have... Here we go. Perfect. So in this little image here, right, you've got kind of the classic SSD on the left-hand side, where it's this big block format, and then you've got an M2 over to the right. So it's much more streamlined, much more slim, and a lot of the time you'll actually have a specific panel on the back of your laptop where you can just flip that patch, screw that M2 in with a single screw, and then that's installed, as opposed to having to install the actual case for the SSD and go through that whole lengthy process. So it's a much smaller, much more slim and form factor. Okay, that's the M2. M2 as opposed to the standard SSD. Sorry guys, I thought I had some pictures there for you. My bad. Now we'll go ahead and move on to RAID drives. Now, RAID stands for Redundant Array of Independent Disks, and it is a method of maintaining uptime and availability, not a method of backing up or storing your data. So have a look at this photo in front of us right here. We've got this kind of box, and it has how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different drives within that one storage container there, okay? So this is a RAID. You have data on each of these individual drives. There are many different types of RAID, and which type of RAID solution you choose will depend on what you're looking for. We'll start with RAID 0, which is in the exam objectives. We're going to go through 0, 1, 5, and 10 according to the exam objectives. So I pulled this photo from the good old Google Images that you can see in front of us here. RAID 0 needs 2 drives. You need to know how many drives each RAID solution needs. It needs 2 drives, and it evenly splits data across drives. It does not offer any redundancy. So if we take a look here, we've got block 1, and then in the next set, block 2, and then block 3 over here, and then block 4, right? So you've got 2 different drives, and it's evenly splitting the data across them. So this is what's called striping. And what it does, basically, it offers more efficiency. It's all about efficiency of the data, okay? It does not offer any redundancy, which means if this drive goes offline, you are losing all of that data. There is no redundancy there. It's all about data efficiency. That, in compared to RAID 1, again, you need 2 drives for this to work, at least 2 drives. This doesn't do striping, but instead it mirrors data across drives. So if we take a look here at this image, you've got in this one A1, and the other one an exact copy A1. Over here A2, and then over here an exact copy A2. So if this drive goes down, then you still have a copy of that data. It's offering redundancy. So you do not have that efficiency of the striping, but you have redundancy in case one goes down. So it does offer redundancy. If one drive goes down, you still have all of your data. That is RAID 1, okay? Now, RAID 5, a little bit different. You need at least 3 drives for RAID 5 to work, and it does striping, which is it evenly splits data across the drives and has one block as a dedicated parity block, which keeps track of the information on the drives and can rebuild the data if one of them goes offline. So let's cut off there. Sorry, guys. What that essentially means is if we take a look here, we've got this disk here. So you've got A1, and then it's split A2, and then A3, and then you've got an A parity over here. And you might be thinking, what does that mean? What an A parity? What the heck? What that means is if you lose, say, for example, disk 2 over here, the parity bit will say, okay, hold on, disk 2 is down. We have A1, we have A3, but we don't have A2, and we used to have A2. So I am now going to start rebuilding that data over here. And it will take some time, but it will be able to rebuild the data there, okay? So what that means is we have striping, right? And we have some redundancy, right? It says a high level of redundancy here. There is redundancy because it can rebuild it, but in the scenario where maybe we lose this drive and this is currently rebuilding A2, if we then lose this, we're done, okay? So we need to keep in consideration it's going to take some time for that drive to rebuild, okay? But we do have striping and we do have redundancy with RAID 5, and you need at least 3 drives. So what you need to know is RAID 5 does redundancy, it does striping, and you need at least 3 drives for it. You need to understand the idea of a parity bit as well for your exam. Finally, RAID 10 requires at least 4 drives. This does everything. All right, this does everything. So it requires at least 4 drives. It evenly distributes data across all drives and has a mirrored copy of each drive. It does offer redundancy. So you can see here, it's basically a RAID 1 inside of a RAID 0. So what I mean by that is if we take a look over here, we have an exact copy of each here. A1, A1, A3, A3, A5, A5, A7, A7, okay? And that's an exact mirrored copy. And you then have what you could consider a separate RAID 1 with the other data over here. So A2, A2, A4, A4, A6, A6, A8, A8. So if we lose this drive over here, you still have that data over here. And additionally, it is striped across those 4 drives. So A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. So you have efficiency and redundancy. This is the best of the best. And along with that comes it being very expensive too. So insofar as RAID configurations are concerned for your exam, you're going to need to know what each RAID is, how many drives are needed for each RAID configuration, the function of a parity bit, understanding that's only in RAID 5, there's only a parity bit in RAID 5, and be able to think about cost and requirements in order to offer the correct RAID solution to a consumer, to someone asking your advice. So of course, RAID 10 is the most expensive one here. So you need to be able to consider budget, requirements, and recommend a RAID solution to someone. And you have a nice little table here that puts the information in simple terms. This is a direct excerpt from my learning guide, which you can grab at journeytocyber.com, along with performance-based question simulations and practice exams. I promise I will never plug myself again. I probably will. That was certainly a lie. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the final component of this exam objective, which is super easy, guys. Removable storage. We've all used a flash drive before, right? It's just a USB. So removable storage is any kind of storage that you can put in and easily take out, usually through USB port or a card reader, or if you still have an older device, like one of these little disk tray situations. So you've got flash drives, you've got memory cards, and you've got optical drives. Really, you just need to understand that these are removable storage, understand what removable storage is, and be able to look at these and say, you know, is this a form of removable storage? Yes or no. Okay. So with that being said, guys, that's going to be it for that information component. Let's get straight into the practice questions now. So question 10 from one of my practice exams that you can get at journeytocyber.com. Okay, let's get straight to it. The question reads, you have been tasked with configuring a high-performance server for a client with a substantial budget. The client places a strong emphasis on achieving optimal data performance and ensuring high data redundancy for their critical applications. Considering these requirements, which RAID configuration would be the most suitable choice? A, RAID 0, B, RAID 1, C, RAID 5, or D, RAID 10? Have a think about it. Pause the video if you need some time, because we're changing over in 3, 2, 1, now. The answer is RAID 10. So they said they had a big budget, a substantial budget, and they wanted optimal data performance and redundancy. So that's going straight to RAID 10. Make sure you know the differences in your RAIDs and you're able to offer the correct solution to someone based on their description of what they need. Next question. You're helping a colleague choose the appropriate solid-state drive for their workstation upgrade. They are looking for the fastest interface available to take advantage of their high-performance applications. Which SSD interface will provide the highest speed based on the information in the scenario? A, SATA, B, USB 3.0, C, PCIe, or D, NVMe? Your answer coming up in a few seconds. Pause the video if you need more time. 3, 2, 1, now. The answer is NVMe. This is a tricky one, guys. Okay, so it's not SATA or USB. That should be clear, just because we should kind of know our speeds, and we should know that PCIe and NVMe are way faster than SATA and USB. So between PCIe and NVMe, we said that you've got PCIe and then NVMe is on top of PCIe. So if you're using PCIe, surely you're using NVMe as well, right? Not quite. Not all SSDs have NVMe capability. Not all of them. So it is possible to use PCIe without necessarily having that NVMe capability, which is why in this question, NVMe is the correct answer. It is the fastest one, because if you use PCIe, great, it's going to go fast, but it's not going to necessarily always have NVMe capability. It's only going to be able to do that if that capability is enabled, is actually available for that drive. So NVMe is the fastest one there and is the correct answer. Any questions about that one, let me know in the comments below. Okay, next question. You are assisting your colleague with selecting the right hard disk drive for a new server build. They are concerned about minimizing latency to ensure optimal performance for the server's workload. Which HDD rotation speed would offer the lowest average latency based on the options provided in the notes? A. 5,400 RPM, B, 7,200 RPM, C, 10,000 RPM, or D, 15,000 RPM. Pause the video if you need to. Answer coming now. The answer is D, 15,000 RPM. So, of course, among the provided options, a hard disk drive with a rotation speed of 15,000 RPM offers the lowest latency. The higher the RPM, the lower the latency, guys. This guy said he wanted minimum latency possible. So that's the correct answer there. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, you've enjoyed the practice questions, you've enjoyed the text components, which have all been excerpts from my learning guide, you can head over and grab that at journeytocyber.com, guys. So you can see the kind of things that are available over there. You've got learning guide. People are loving the learning guide. You've got practice exams, 5 practice exams with their own performance-based questions. And you also have the performance-based question simulation there as well. That's a really cool one that I'm happy about. It's a very unique product, and it covers the troubleshooting component of the exam. So you can get your practice exams. You've got PBQs and multiple choice questions, as you can see there. You can get the performance-based question simulation with some really cool simulations here. You'll have to click on these people, diagnose their issues, what they should do about it, how you can confirm that that's the issue for each individual person. And then you've got the learning guide, which covers each individual exam objective in detail with learning activities and practice questions and answers and active recall questions for each topic. Okay, so people are really giving me good feedback on that one, so I recommend you go check it out. Now, you can get that at journeytocyber.com. Other than that, guys, I'll leave you to it, and I'll see you in the next video.